Hey Gavin, this is going to be a short training for you. Your mom, your dad can watch this as well. But this is to help you understand the whole structure and the psychology and the thinking of how to move your scores. So as you practice, as you get into the right mindset, the right identity, all of those things to help you get to right now initially like the +9 that you want or the 39 that you want to shoot in tournament. I'm present to the fact that you shot it already in practice, which is absolutely incredible and amazing, and moving that in tournaments. And as you continue to shoot lower scores, like we'll get some that are high, some that are lower, and we'll just to encompass all of that so you can start to understand and get yourself pre-framed and understand like how do you make things occur and happen so you can accelerate things forward in the right direction and have everything that you're wanting without being overly stressed, and have a strategic plan of action with specific intentions in the practice. So as we go in, this is the scoring call it the scoring paradigm, right? And this is something that I had learned from Dr. Rick Jensen. He is one of the top mental game coaches like in the world. He doesn't practice as much. I think he still has some clients, but he does a lot of corporate stuff now. But he was in the golf industry, and he was in the golf industry for a long time, and he worked with remarkable amount of golfers and tennis players. Like, to give you an example, I think he has, I don't know the exact number, but it's like something like 12 or 14 like major winners that he's worked with on the PGA, on like the major tours, right? In the golf major tours, whether it's LPGA, PGA, or I think it's like 12, 14 or some like high amount. So he's worked with like major champions. He doesn't disclose, or I'm not able to disclose like who he's worked with, but it's like 14 or 18 or something in those double digits is how much they've combined to win. And also in the tennis realm, he worked with tennis athletes. And again, I'm not able to disclose like who he's worked with, but they've won a double digit, Grand Slam titles, right? The people that he's worked with combined, Grand Slam titles. So like double digit majors in tennis and in golf. And so, I learned this from him years back, and it's something that stuck with me, and like everything that I see is through this shift and paradigm. So when we look at our score, it comes down and we look at everything, and our score ends up being on a bell curve like this, right? Where we will say this is the median. This would be high, and this will be the low score. So this is your performance curve, and everything works on a bell curve. And so, excuse me, as we look at your typical rounds, this is not from Tiger Woods, PGA champions all over the place, all the way to like beginners that play like shooting the hundreds plus, like play consistently and play regularly. There is from your lowest rounds all the way to your highest rounds. This is per 18 holes. There is a 10-stroke gap. And so what that means is, I'm going to show it to you over 10 strokes. But now if you're looking at 9 holes, you would just say it's about 5. And so when we look at something around like your 39 and 40, it would be fair to say that when we look at 39, it's not necessarily your low because we did it once, but like on the low spectrum could be something like, 42. Let's just call it like 40, 41, 42. And on the high spectrum, it's going to be, let's see, 5, so 46, 47. And so right in the middle would be 44. So this is what your performance curve looks like. So when you start to shoot rounds that are, just to give you an example, when you shoot this round, because it fits on this bell curve, so the way you see it, your 42s and 41s will come up the exact same amount as 46 and 47. And so when you're looking at it, this is like anything that falls inside of this curve is where your golf game is at, right? And some days, and when we look at this, the probability of you shooting a 41 is the exact same probability of you shooting a 46. The probability of you shooting a 42 is the exact same probability of you shooting a 47. And so, like, you might be thinking, like, oh, like that's not right, because there are things that go wrong and like majorly bad that makes you shoot a 47 versus a 41. And so as we start to like look at things that occur on this side, we would label as, things that are going like worse than normal. On the other side, we will see this side of the curve it will be better. Right, so that's what it looks like and why it's the same, because when you get the same amount of worse than normal to shoot a 47, you get the identical better than normal that gets you to shoot the 41. And when you have the days that are like bouncing back and forth, some are good, some are off, and kind of just in the middle and just an average round, we get what we would call the median. So median is far different than the average. So when we look at scores, we don't look at your average score. Eventually, when you get a handicap and an index, those are not accurate numbers to where you're actually at. It just gives you, it's just a metrics that allows you to play in tournaments and allows it to be measurable against everybody else that you're playing with in the tournament. So your handicap is not a true metric of your actual score, because it doesn't tell the whole story. And I'll, like, what I mean by that, and I'll come back. So if you get a golfer, and let's just call this John, and his handicap equals, just kind of give you an idea, this is why like the number that we're showing you here matters more than eventually a handicap, or it matters more than an average. Right, handicap, and let's just say this golfer has a handicap of 10, right, which means 82 is what they'll shoot for 18 holes. And now we get somebody like Tiger, and his handicap, if he was to have one, I don't even know what it would be, +6, which would mean 66. And this would be like not in tournament, but this would be like in a casual round, he'll shoot 66, probably what his handicap might be. And so what this is saying is that a John with handicap would be able to, right, compete with Tiger. And the truth is that if you look at handicap only, and John having a handicap of 10, which means he's shooting 82, and Tiger with a handicap of +6, shooting 66, which means 66, just so I can, not just, I want to educate you here. This means if Tiger shoots a 66, he's going to average 72 because he's going to add 6 to his strokes. Whereas John shoots a 82, he's going to subtract 10, and that becomes 72. So it's saying like these two numbers will average out because of the handicap. Makes it fair because you're doing it. And when the John and Tiger, even with the handicap, because handicap takes, kind of an average, a skewed average, but it's on the premise of an average, Tiger will win. This will not be a 50-50 game, right? Tiger will win more than 50% of the time with this handicap. And it's because, right, Tiger, when we look at this curve here, Tiger's curve in his median is going to be something that looks like 69, right, where his low might be 64 and his high will be 74. Whereas John, on the other hand, his median, because it's not an average, will look something like this, where if it's an 82, he will probably be like a 85 with a low of, let's just go like this, 84 with a low of 79 and the high of 89. This is what the curve looks like, Tiger and John. And when we see that, there is a huge difference on this end, where this is now, the difference is 15 strokes. When we look here, it's the same, 15 strokes. And if you look here, if it's 15 strokes. So like this would be the realistic truth of like average versus like the median, because the median takes every score that you put into play, not the average. Because if John here shoots a 179, and then he shoots more of the numbers that are like 81, 82, 84, 87, 89, and it comes out to averaging lower, whereas Tiger will have more numbers that are closer to this side. It looks like this, versus that's what this curve tells you. Even John will look like this. It'll be balanced on all sides, and so that's why it's skewed. So we look at this is the performance curve, and so the chances of Tiger, again in this curve, I don't know if this is his real number, but it's probably pretty close. The chances of Tiger shooting a 64 is the exact probability of him shooting a 74. And so that is what we're saying. He'll he'll shoot 69, this number, more times than any other number, right? So it might be 68, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, more times than any other number, because it's hitting this section of the curve. So that's what I want you to understand here. So when we start to look at what's going on, like now, how do we, and so actually before I go there, we'll also have things called outliers, right, where we do it like once. It's like our best score. So now for you, we have things like this. We get a 40 and a 39. This would be off of the curve, right? And until we get more numbers in there to really see what the curve looks like, the probability of you shooting the 39 like immediately after, so this is not saying like the same like month, this is like the very next day, the chance if you shoot something that's off of your curve, the chances of you shooting a 39 like the very next day, again it's not impossible, but this is just probability, would be identical to you going and then shooting a 48 or 49, because this is an outlier as well that sits off of the curve. So it doesn't fit inside your profile of play. And so when we start to shoot like our best rounds are always outliers that fit off of the curve. So that being said, is the game that you're trying to play is you want to take this entire curve, right? Not just the score that you're looking at, like 44, and move it down, or get the 40 and move that down. You're trying to say, how do I get this entire curve and then move the curve that way. So you're trying to shift the entire curve that way. Right, and so this brings us into, the two questions that I asked would be, when we look at the 46 and 47 right here, you have to like look at it and say, what are the things that are happening that causes 46 and 7s in your score, right? And that will be anywhere from like 1, typically it's like at that rate right there, it's typically one thing, but it could be anything from 1 to 3. But think of like the big one, because you want to understand like what is the one thing. Again, it could be 1 to 3, but it's most likely going to be what's the one thing that gets you to shoot 46 and 47, because that would be the obstacle you're trying to solve. Right, so that is the obstacle that you want to solve. Question number 2 would be, when you shot .39 and you shot a 40, they were pretty close together, then you're asking, what are the things that made this possible? And as I'm reading this, I am pretty happy about my writing, because I was critiqued earlier today on my writing was not the most legible. So I am a lot more taking my time to be present in my writing versus like speaking and jotting things down, right? So that's something that I'm measuring for myself, and just being present to the fact that as I'm speaking, to put words on paper. So like I'm doing the same thing that I'm telling you here, is like when we're looking at measuring what things, like even as I'm teaching, part of a distraction would be like if I'm writing things that are not legible, right? That could be a distraction. So it's not just learning how to speak and teach better, just like as you're trying to learn and better your golf game, I'm always measuring, I'm always monitoring, right? I'm always innovating, optimizing. So, today I'm a lot more present to the fact that like my writing, I'm going to be more present and make things a lot more legible, just to be present in this moment, around all things, not just speaking into this audio here. So, question number 2, when you shoot 39, 40, what are the things that made this possible? And again, it will be 1 to 3 things, but it's typically going to be 1, because this would be, right, the great that you want to move forward. So these are things that you want to be intentional, because if let's just say you're pitching from, I'm making stuff up right now, from 20 yards and in was 15 feet and closer, And the second thing was 2 putting or less from 15 feet and closer from 15 feet and closer. These are going to be keys that are musts if you want to. I did so right there. I did it again. I just kind of scribbled it on there. So because I'm present to, right, it allows me to catch things in the moment, right? And so as you're learning to practice and you get these keys for yourself, the moment like you get off topic in your practice, like part of the mastery is like getting yourself to shift into, oh, that is not, man, that's not a 39-40 shooter. That's the 47 shooter, and pick that up there and then start to eliminate that, right? And so these are the keys and the musts. So this becomes part of the practicing, because unless this occurs, then 39 and 40 becomes much more difficult. And for you, I know you want to get to even par. So like third would be what's missing. One thing that gets you to 36, right? And then that is what you write in there. So you can now start to fast pace the direction that you want to go. So what we've just learned here in this sense is the scoring paradigm. And how do you shift the entire curve? We start to eliminate things that cause a 46 and 47 to occur. That's the obstacle that you're solving. And then we find that when we do shoot the 39, the 40s, or even the 41s, 42s, or anything like in this green section here, the better than normal, what does better than normal mean, right? That's the metrics that we're keeping to make sure we're moving the better than normal continuously, because at some point, as your scores move and shift, like this better than normal here will then become worse than normal, because your whole curve starts to shift. Because now the 41, 42, 43, 44 will then be on the right side in the worse than normal, and then you'll be in, right, 40 would be the median, and then your lows will be 39, 38, 37, 36, and 36, right, and maybe 38 will be the low side of the curve, right? So we're always thinking, shifting the entire curve, not just on one score, because now when we look at moving a score, just one score is too simplified, because there's too much things going on and we don't work on enough things, because trying to just move the score becomes very inconsistent. When we try to make the entire curve shift to the left, now it encompasses things and habits that have to be broken and new habits that have to be created, old skills that need to be let go that don't serve you, and new skills that need to be taken on as things that are more powerful for you. And so this is how we'll view scoring. So it's absolutely incredible, and it's such a blessing that you can shoot the 39 and the 40. And as we get this, that's being able to steal the greatness from the 39 and 40 and start to do the things on purpose, right? This is the block time. This is the things that you start to unpack, like what had to have happened. And then when we shoot the 46, 47, because it's on your curve, like I'm not here to tell you it's going to feel good. It's not, because that's on the high side of your curve. We don't want to shoot that. And also, as frustrating as it might be, as upset as we might get, maybe we might be sad, right? Well, right, however you deal with that emotion, like you deal with that emotion, but don't just leave it as the emotion. We take the strategy out of like the actual data that comes our way, and we learn from it, right? What caused a 46, 47? What was happening that was on the worse than normal? The one thing that if I got rid of, 46 and 47 would never occur ever again, right? And like that's the thinking, right? That's the acceleration. And that's actually how we do it, and that's how you do it, so you're not overworking yourself, because you're not just practicing everything. You're like strategically pinpointing the exact things to shake the entire curve right? And lower that thing down. So Gavin, this is the chart for you. This is the mindset, the thinking that you have to get into, and this is how you do it. Like, unbelievable, Gavin. Keep it up, and we'll talk soon.